Hello guys, here we are today, Ancient Gameplays. I'm Fabio Pisco and welcome to my channel. And as for this video I'm gonna talk to you about several things, but in this case and mostly the new things that came out. Sorry, I'm just adjusting the exposure.
Thank you, kind sir.
The new things that came out today by AMD in terms of CPUs. If you didn't watch my live stream where I actually explained this, I will resume it in this video. What CPUs they're gonna release, when they are going to be available for purchasing. CPUs like the 5700X 3D, CPUs like the 8000G series, which are basically APUs that now bring RDNA 3 integrated graphics, which is a very nice thing. But we'll get there. So everything that I even did a video about the 7600XT that you can watch on my video section. And now we have this one with the CPU side. A history of AMD innovation leading the AI era. So they had the first processor to break 1 GHz, I remember this. The first native quad-core x86 processor, I remember this as well. Then they had the first 1 GHz graphics processor, I believe it was on the 7000 series. I believe, or the 6000 series. I believe it was the 7000, but I might be wrong. Then they had the first accelerated processing unit, like we said before, APU. They had the first APU, technically, let's call that. Then they had the first 16, 32, 64, and 96 core desktop processors as well. And then they did have, or now they do have, the first neural processing unit in a Windows x86 processor. And just because of that, I'm gonna leave you with today's sponsor. Today's video sponsor is GVG Mall, bringing you all the software deals you need, like Windows 10, Windows 11, Office 2021 with a new Windows 11 design, and even Windows Server 2022. For all of these, you can use my SKG discount code for 25% off, getting a Windows 10 serial key for only $16. Then use the key on your Windows settings, and you'll have an activated system. We start with AI processing leadership. They're comparing it to the Core Ultra 155H. I do believe that this is the counterpart of the 8084U. I do believe it's the case. I'm not sure because, well, I'm not much into neural processing and I'm not much into mobile processors. But well, it is 1.05 times faster here, 1.17 times faster here, 1.43 times faster in YOLOV 8, and 1.79 times faster, in Deep Lav V3. As for the AI processing leadership, once again, they're comparing it now on other applications, like Stable Diffusion using Olive, which is 1.06 times, not much. As for the ProCyan AI Bench, we have a 1.44 times the performance of the Core Ultra 7 155H. As for the ProCyan AI Bench Float 16, basically here it's Float 32, in here it's Float 16, and in Float 16 it is even faster. As for DaVinci Resolve HD to Ultra HD, I believe it's kind of upscaling or something like that. It is much faster, almost 2 times faster than the Ultra 7 155H, which is sincerely a very good thing. As for Full HD gaming leadership, well, yeah, if we compare the things, well, it's Core Ultra 7 155H with Arc graphics, but it's not the discrete GPU, of course, it's the inbuilt GPU. And comparing inbuilt GPU versus inbuilt GPU, of course, the Ryzen 7 is much faster because it brings a 780M, which is a very good integrated GPU. I believe 12 compute units of RDNA 3, up to 3 GHz in terms of frequency, and that's not bad at all, not bad. So as for League of Legends, it's more or less the same, but then it is 1.26 times in the Shadow of the Tomb Raider, 1.28 times in Hitman 3, and for example, the list goes on, and in World of Tanks Encore, it is 1.51 times the performance of the Core Ultra 7 and 1.60 times in Far Cry 6. And if we go once again to productivity, in terms of mobile, it is also much faster than the Core Ultra 7. Once again, remember these are results shown by AMD, but usually in terms of productivity, the results are more or less on par with what they should be. The gaming benchmarks are the ones that usually tend to deviate a lot, or at least a slight bit. As for Geekbench, we have Premiere with a budget, Geekbench photo editing, 7-zip, Cinebench, Blender, basically works that are done mostly on the CPU side, and even here it is much faster. It is still Zen 4, I believe, but much faster. Definitely great. As for efficiency, well, it is supposed to be even more efficient, both in 14 inches identical chassis competitive performance up to. So they put the power that the chip consumes, and then put the performance it delivers, and that's how they actually make these charts, with 1.76 times the performance in ProSci and Office productivity, and performance per watt is up to 1.81 times. Very nice. Now, as for the things that he wanted to see, the Ryzen 8000G series processors. Let's go see the performance of the 700M series. Get a huge performance boost from exclusive AMD HyperRX with fluid motion frames. Well, they are now selling you the snake oil once again, because HyperRX basically uses upscaling and Radeon boost to increase the performance. So it is not real performance. Of course, if we are comparing upscaling to upscaling, that's fine, but if you are comparing just or showing just results with upscaling, it is not, or just results with upscaling, once again, it is not the best way to deliver things, even more if you are using fluid motion frames, which kind of double your frame rate, more or less, but they're fake frames, and they also deliver motion artifacts and so on, so it's not a good thing. But still, we're talking about the 8700G with the Radeon 780M, and we're talking about 1080p low, but I mean, it's an iGPU. 1080p low, it's not bad. So 1080p low in a heavy game such as Star Wars Jedi Survivor, we get 23 FPS, 23 average FPS, which is not bad, sincerely. As for Starfield, we still can achieve the 32 average FPS mark, once again, not that bad. Alan Wake 26, but as soon as we go to lighter games, in Baldur's Gate, for example, in Baldur's Gate we get 58 FPS, meaning that we can play at around 60 FPS most of the times. Not all the times, because there are parts that are heavier, of course, but most times we can play at 58 FPS. As for Lies of P, it still delivers close to the 60 average FPS mark, and if it delivers close to the 60 average FPS mark, it means that you can ramp up the settings a bit, maybe to medium or high, and possibly use upscaling technologies like FSR or TSR, frame generation, but the good frame generation, not the fluid motion frames that had lots of input latency. If we have, for example, FSR 3 frame generation, if you can get at least around the 58 average FPS mark, frame generation will be decent at 1080p, and even more decent at 720p if you want to decrease the resolution. So inside the 65 watts package, inside your tiny little processor, you have this GPU that can run these games at these frame rates, which is insane. Now we have more of this, of course. One thing that I don't really know is that, well, they say 1080p low details, unless otherwise specified, but I see high FPS here. Too high, actually. If we can get Cyberpunk 2077 to run at 1080p low 63 FPS without any kind of upscaling, that's actually pretty good. With Far Cry 6 running at 65 and Assassin's Creed Valhalla at 68. Borderlands, Metro Exodus, well, Metro is an old game, the same for GTA 5. Dota 2 is not that heavy as well, and League of Legends not that heavy as well, and 500 FPS with World of Tanks. Well, that I don't really know, but I do believe that it may be able to reach these FPS numbers. I mean, the 7800M is a great integrated graphics, great. Now, enthusiastic class gaming when paired with discrete graphics. Once again, ready to grow with your game. And they are here showing that basically, even if you have a 8700G, even if you have an APU instead of a full CPU, you can still have pretty high FPS numbers, even if you're running an APU. Because, for example, if you were running one of the previous APUs, the 3400G, for example, or the 2400G, well, they were considerably inferior to the full-sized CPUs. And while these ones will be inferior as well, they are still able to deliver very good performance CPU-sided. Once again, up to 168 FPS in GTA 5, 168 in Dota, Final Fantasy as well, and here Dota suffers a lot from the cache, and the thing about the APUs is that they usually have half the cache of the full-sized CPUs, and that's why they suffer more in some scenarios than in others. But since they have more L2 cache due to the Zen 4 architecture, well, it is much better than the previous APUs, definitely much better in terms of CPU processing power and GPU processing power. Great, actually, great. Now let's go down, and we have smooth Full HD gaming in small form factors. The fastest desktop PC processor graphics in the world. Only AMD can power this kind of next-gen small form factor desktop gaming. Damn, that's a lot of words, shenanigans, with built-in graphics. Now we're comparing it to the 14700K and with the Ryzen 5 8600G. So the integrated graphics on the 14700K are basically on par in Far Cry 6, and that's about it. Both the Ryzen 5 and the Ryzen 7 APUs are much faster. So 2 times, almost 3 times, and 3.4 times, and if we're talking about Ryzen 7, it is 4 times faster in Hitman 3. But I mean, it's not that big of a thing, because if the 14700K is delivering, let's say 10 FPS, well, if Hitman 3 is delivering 40 FPS with Ryzen 7 8700G, well, it's from 10 to 40. It's a huge difference, definitely. Not complaining, but yeah, still low FPS. But I mean, not complaining, definitely an increase. Now we have a supposed chart with smooth Full HD gaming, and they are comparing the 13400F and a GeForce 1650. So basically the 13400F with the discrete graphics, an old graphics of course, 1650, it's a GTX by the way, versus the integrated graphics, the built-in Radeon 780M RDNA 3 inside the Ryzen 7 8700G. And I mean, it might not seem much, but it is a fact that the integrated GPU graphics improved a lot in the past years, and it is actually overtaking the GTX 1650 with an integrated graphics, which is insane. I will buy one of these myself, and I will compare it to the RX 570, for example, and see how both cards compare in terms of performance. If the integrated GPU is actually able to outmatch the RX 570 or the RX 580, it will be actually interesting. But as you can see, in terms of pricing, it should be way less expensive than buying these two, and it will be overall faster or equal, while also consuming a lot less power, so it's a win-win situation. In terms of powerful productivity, they are comparing the 13400F with the GeForce, of course, with the Ryzen 7's 8700G with integrated graphics, and this is what actually amazes me in terms of productivity. The 13400F is not a bad CPU for productivity. Even there, the 8700G with way less cache and so on is performing better than that CPU. At a lower price, or should be at the same price more or less, but it brings a more powerful iGPU, and it is 1.1 times faster in 3D physics, so basically 10% faster, and up to 4 times faster or 4.6 times faster when it comes to LAME or Handbrake, or 7-zip 2.5 times faster. Even in POV-Ray we have it at 2.1 times faster, which is insane. Even if we go to the most basic ones like Passmark CPU, 1.2 times faster. So we have the Ryzen 8000G series, and we have the Ryzen 7 8700G once again. And watch this, with Ryzen AI. Then we have the 8600G with Ryzen AI as well, and then we have the 8500G and the 8300G with no Ryzen AI whatsoever. The Ryzen 7 8700G and the 8600G, they use full-fat Ryzen 4 cores. So the usual cores that we see on the Ryzen 7000 series. As for these ones, I don't know if you watched my video some time ago of the Zen 4C cores. We have the Zen 4 cores, the cores inside the Ryzen 7000 series processors, and then we have the Zen 4C cores. Those are smaller cores that have lower frequencies and less cache, but besides from that, they have the same IPC everything is the same. They just have less cache and less frequency, and they can put two of those cores in the same space as one full fat core. Compared to Intel that has the smaller cores, of course, the E-cores, but those E-cores have lower IPC, lower frequency, lower everything usually, and they are from a different architecture, while the Zen 4C cores are basically Zen 4 cores, but with lower frequencies and less cache. These two APUs, they bring mixed up cores, so they bring Zen 4 cores and Zen 4C cores, and I believe that's why they don't have the Ryzen AI presented. For example, the 8700G and the 8600G, Zen 4. That's all, Zen 4. While, for example, the 8500G has two Zen 4 cores plus 4 Zen 4C cores, meaning that you kind of have like two really fast cores and 4 slower cores. Not as slow as the E-cores from Intel, much faster of course, but slower, definitely slower. As for the Ryzen 3 or the Ryzen 5, in this case it's Ryzen 5, damn, Ryzen 5 8300G, well, it's 4-8 and you have only one Zen 4 core and 3 Zen 4C core. By the way, these Zen 4C cores also can also have hyper-threading, or in this case simultaneous multi-threading, something that the E-cores from Intel can't. So let's go up once again, and now we have the Ryzen 7 5700X 3D for people that don't want to send away their AM4 motherboards. Instead of spending that much money on the 5800X 3D, you actually have the 5700X 3D, which is basically a 5800X 3D, but with lower frequencies. So the base is only 3 GHz and it goes up to 4.1. I believe that the 5800X 3D goes up to 4.4 or something like that. Nothing astonishing, it's much better than the usual 5700X and the usual 5800X. For example, AMD is comparing it here with the 13600K, and they are praising it. They are making it or pricing it at the same level as the 13600K. And in terms of gaming, once again, the 13600K is much faster in terms of productivity, no doubts, but in terms of gaming, since it has a lot more cache, well, it performs around the same as the newer CPU, as the newer architecture CPU, and quite better in other games like Dying Light 2, it's, well, Dying Light, PUBG, Dota, Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Who writes this? Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Damn. Red Dead Redemption a bit better, Call of Duty Modern Warfare and so on, so since it has the 3DV cache it helps a lot in gaming scenarios. And now we have a CPU that nobody asked for, nobody.
It's false. No way. Not this time. We created it.
The 5700X supposedly has a lower boost clock than this one. We have here a lower boost clock of 4.6 GHz. I'll just search on my smartphone to see. So I'm on AMD's website here, and I'm watching the 5700X, and the 5700X has a maximum boost of 4.6 GHz. Maybe AMD is actually stopping the production of the 5700X and continuing with the 5700 non-X. Since they're releasing the X3D, they're basically stopping the X and just, well, using the non-X instead. I don't really know, but it makes no sense because the maximum boost is exactly the same as the X version that was supposed to have a higher boost. As for the performance, they're comparing it with the 12400F, which is, well, the normal, I guess, and it is more or less on par with the performance, which seems decent to me. Now we have two more APUs that nobody asked for. Exactly the same as the older ones, exactly the same, but the thing that intrigues me is that we have now AMD Radeon graphics built in, and I don't know if they are using Vega graphics or if somehow they are implementing RDNA 2 graphics here. Because, for example, I don't know if you know this, but the 7000 series processors, the AMD ones, so the normal processors, not the APUs, they bring an integrated graphics of 2 compute units with RDNA 2 architecture. So maybe it was possible to bring RDNA 2 inside these APUs as well, but I don't really know if they're bringing RDNA 2 or if they're bringing Vega integrated graphics, because AMD doesn't state it as well, and if they don't state it, I believe that they bring Vega graphics, and if that's the case, the performance won't differ much. And in that scenario, why buying the GT if you can simply buy the normal G for a cheaper price? I mean, I don't really understand. In terms of performance, for example, they are comparing it against their own 5600G in terms of gaming and application performance, and like I said before, it would be more or less on par. 3, 4, 5, 6, 10% at most, 11% in WinRAR in terms of CPU performance, and in PUBG and so on, it's just up to 10% difference, which is just a difference from higher clock speeds or something like that. Nothing really relevant. I suppose it's still the Vega integrated graphics. Otherwise, the same computer units with RDNA 2 architecture would be much faster. $249 for the 5700X 3D SEP, of course, then you have the taxes of your country and so on, but this is actually a very nice price. For people wanting to maximize the performance on their AM4 socket, this is the CPU that they want. Very, very good gaming performance and very cheap as well. AM4 has been the platform that lived the most in the past decade or even more than that. It's just amazing how this platform just keeps on giving and people just keep using it due to more cache and the X3D CPU. Just amazing. I hope AM5 lives at least as long. But well, that's about it. So we have more APUs, we have more mobile processors, more APUs, the 8000G series processors, APUs with awesome integrated graphics, Ryzen AI, AM5 sockets, Zen4 architecture, everything that you need to know. Then we have the 5700, the 5700X 3D, which will be definitely a bestseller. Some things that people did not ask for, but some others that were expected, like the 5700X 3D, and definitely the new APUs, the 8000G APUs, that are very, very good for what they cost. Nice. I would just like to know their pricing, but yeah, it is what it is. Anyway, guys, thanks a lot for watching. If you have any doubts or if you want to let me know about something that I did wrong or that I stated wrong in this video, well, be my guest. Just leave your comment in the comment section and let me know what you think, and let me know what I did wrong or right. And I guess that's all for this. I'm really excited for the 8000G series. I will buy the 8700G and I'll test it myself because it seems like a really interesting product. A really interesting product for sure. Thank you very much for watching and see you in the next video, guys. Cheers.